Hi, my name is Erika, I'm a knitter from Brazil, and you are watching my knitting hot takes. So, today I wanted to come to you with a chill, funny video, and I decided to make some sort of a knit and chat. So you can grab your project, you can grab your beverage of choice. I will be drinking coffee soon enough, but not here. I'm going to knit something. So this is my June top, second time I tried. This is XS size. At first I guessed on for the S, but my gauge was wrong. I'll tell you everything about in the next podcast episodes. So I will be working in it because this is my easiest project. It's stockinette around. I probably won't make a mistake, and I will be talking some opinions that might be controversial, maybe not. I believe many people agree with me, but I also believe many people don't agree with me. So let me know in the comments what do you think of each of these things that I will be saying to you soon enough. And I think I'm going to drop the bomb right from the start when I say to you that I think that the knitting community is not as inclusive as it's made to be. Yes, I know we like to think of ourselves as very nice people that receive everyone with open arms, but to be honest, it's not completely like that. Sure, there are places that are very welcoming. I have found very nice people from all over the world through this hobby, and this is one of the things I am grateful for knitting for. However, I also think there are certain non-written rules in the knitting community, and you can only become prominent in it if you follow those rules. And sometimes some environments, they shun you out if you don't play by the rules. It's not like hard set rules, it's more like knitting with this and that yarn, knitting this and that designer, doing what everybody is doing. And I'm not even saying that is an exclusivity of the knitting community, of the crochet community, which I think is a little bit more open than the knitting community, I should say. But there is kind of a vibe that you have to vibe to this way of thinking, this way of behaving yourself, these mannerisms, so that you will be accepted for the big names, for the majority of people. You have to have the same tastes and all this kind of thing. This is kind of a feature of any community. Any society that you are in has some cultish features, and knitting is no different. But I think it's a pity. I think we should be fighting to be more open, more inclusive to people with different tastes. For example, I see people who knit only plushes, and they are kinda set away, to be received in the knitting community astoundingly well. You need to be doing the same things that everybody is doing. Some people are just sock knitters, some people are just blanket knitters, some people only knit dishcloths their entire knitting career. You can think that it's limiting. Yes, maybe it is, but it's their autonomy, it's their choice. So let them knit all of that and don't make a face, so to say. Don't look down on them, because if people feel like they are looked down by making the knitting choices that they did, it's probably because they catch that in the air. So for example, there is this YouTuber I really like. She had felt pressure to knit socks, to knit garments, and she doesn't like it. She prefers very much to knit plushes, and let her be happy in plushes and wear things, and let people be happy. Let people knit what they want. If you are someone that don't want to knit a sweater ever in your life, do not knit a sweater ever in your life. Do not get this pressure. Of course, you might be under the impression that you are not knitting it because you can't. So in this case, I will say do it once, and persevere through the process of knitting that sweater, that sock, that dress or whatever from start to finish. Get to the process, understand everything, and in the end of it, you will know if you like it and you want to continue, or if it was just pressure and you just prefer knitting the stuff you were knitting before, and you can go back to that. You are just as much a knitter as any person that churns out sweaters left and right. My second hot take is a little bit associated to the first one, because I think that the worst people in the knitting community are the yarn snobs. Yes. And I'm not talking about people who choose to knit for themselves with the best yarn they can afford. I'm not even talking about someone who chose to knit only with like Rowan yarns or Cardiff Cashmere for themselves. I am talking about those people that sit in a pedestal and say, what everybody else should be knitting. Like I have seen, for example, in those kinds of videos like the one I'm making, people talking very badly of people who knit with acrylic, and at the same time they thought that it wasn't a problem at all to have a big stash. I have a word to say about that, but that's another hot topic. The thing is, yarn accessibility is a much more complex thing than people think. They think only about the issue of one yarn being affordable or not, which is honestly a big issue, because if you have enough money, you can order yarn from anywhere in the world. Well, anyway, people who judge the yarn that others will work with are the worst. It's that attitude that your work can never be as good as theirs. They may even say, everybody knows of their own business, you can knit with whatever you want, but their attitude is like, I will never touch the trash that you knit with. It would bring allergy to my fingers, and your work thus can never be as good as mine because I am knitting with like baby alpaca sheared by the monks of Himalaya, and this kind of thing, this kind of attitude. And I don't see it even in the most prominent figures. Sometimes I see it in little people, and it's pretty annoying, because accessibility is not just a matter of money, it's also a matter of place. So in short, don't make assumptions about a person's work based on the yarn they are working with. I do know plastic is a problem, I should say that. I do know microplastics are a problem. I also know that conscious consumerism, in Portuguese it's consumo consciente, it's not a thing, to be honest. It's a thing to a very limited extent. I mean, the act of choosing what you will buy to make the less aggressive to the environment choices. If you can do this, great. It's limited by two things: what you have offered to you and the money you have. And those things are a great limitation for the overwhelming majority of humanity. If we don't solve poverty and the thoughts of most people about the environment, nitpicky actions from a random people that can do these actions won't help. If you can only knit with the most environmental friendly yarn, please do, but not everybody can, and it would be unfair, I think, to forbid those people from knitting, or to force them to knit only stuff that will not, for example, solve their problems, because people who live in countries that don't have wool also need to be warm, and the cotton doesn't warm. Many people will say that buying yarn, collecting yarn, and knitting are two different hobbies. I think this is unreasonable and it shouldn't exist. And yes, a large stash is a problem. If you are a professional, you make designs, you make video tutorials, you knit professionally, you sell your knitting, anything like that, and yarn for you is a work material, you can have as large a stash as you want. But if you are just a random knitter and you have more yarn than you will be able to consume in your lifetime, that's not reasonable. Consuming should not be a hobby. If you are just piling up skeins after skeins after skeins of yarn that are rotting and being attacked by moths in your shelves, someone else could be working with that. And then if you ever get to need yarn again, you can go and buy one that will be fresh and it will satisfy that itch of something new. You will spare money, you will not let products that are very good to spoil. See the yarn snobs talking like they're not behaving like that because of snobbery. No, they are behaving like that because there is a proper yarn for each project. And while I agree with that, I think this is a relative concept. For example, I have heard of people, oh, I don't need color work because I can't afford like Shetland wool. People only need cables with 4-ply and more plies wool and this kind of thing, because they think that if they don't get that specific yarn, their project will be horrible. It's not like that. And the more we go back in time, the more we see that it's not like that, because you can find vintage booklets that need color work with acrylic. If you go through Rowan's patterns from the 80s and the 90s, you will see tons of color work with cotton. And people will think cotton doesn't merge because the thing about the Shetland wool and color work is because it's a very toothy wool and it grabs in each other and it merges, and the drawing then becomes a solid thing. Of course, cotton doesn't do that. But still, if you go through their designs, you will see that they were knitting a lot of intarsia, a lot of stranded color work even with cotton. And this kind of yarn snobbery, it limits people. And I don't think this is the only thing that limits people in our current knitting behavior, so to say. Top down in the round is limiting as heck. Yes, I said what I said. I have knitted more bottom-up garments than top-down in my life. If I can knit something top-down, I know the advantages and I prefer top-down too. However, I admit that some constructions, some stitch patterns are better bottom-up. They just are. Lace patterns, cable patterns, it's much easier to establish the pattern along a fixed number of stitches, complete repeats, and then decrease from those complete patterns to create the shaping. And it's much harder to do the opposite. Create the shaping as you go, as you create the pattern at the same time. So it's troublesome for the designer, it's troublesome for the knitter, it's troublesome for sizing properly a garment, because if you go through the latest released cable garments, cardigans, sweaters, and you see which are bottom up, which are top down, you will notice that the top down often have cables that don't align in the front and the back or somewhere else. The designers will say it's because of the mat. Maybe, but I'm more likely to think that it's because of them having to design it top down to please the clients, because so many people won't knit bottom up. I think knitting only top down is robbing you from the joys of finding other constructions like bottom up, side to side. Have you knitted anything side to side? I have already knitted stuff from the middle up and then the middle down. It's very funny. And also, knitting in the round can be limiting as well. But sometimes you will get the best final product by knitting in panels and seaming, because seaming gives you structure. So if you're knitting with, for example, a very fiber, a denser fabric, or a cabled pattern, sometimes it's heavy because of the amount of cables. Lace pattern could use seaming too, because it will give structure and prevent the lace from stretching out of shape. And also there is the advantage of being able to carry around the smaller pieces that you will then assemble in the end. And honestly, it's not so hard. Once you do it 1, 2, 3 times, it's not so hard, it's second nature. You might get surprised. I think this one is pretty unpopular, but it's the truth of my heart, and I should say that oversized shoulder sweaters are overdone and overrated. No, they do not fit everybody. They're just the fashion in some region of the earth, which is considered fashionable, and that's why they are in fashion. And they do not look cute in everybody. I know this is a matter of taste, but I think we have enough of them already. You know, dropped shoulder is not the most flattering construction for everybody. I disagree with that. If you are a smaller person in stature, in shoulder, anything, you might find it hard to wear. And that's it. From the 80s until now, we have enough oversized. Now, could you please, designers, come up with something new, something different, something that is zero ease? And I know some designers already do, but the majority does not. The majority is knitting the same things over and over. We have enough of that. And we also have more than enough of beige. I'm sick of beige. I have been sick of beige since the Kardashians, because they made everything be nude and brownish beige, and enough is enough. We've had this. This year, the color of the year is this brown, which honestly, I know that for some people it looks good. And if beige suits you, if brown suits you, be happy. Knit with them. I'm all for people knitting with what looks good in them. This is not true for everybody. Beige makes me look that, and also I think that beige detracts from the designs. It does not always showcase the features. Very often, again and again, I have seen patterns that I was like, and then someone knitted it in a real color, a vivid color, like bright orange, like High Fiber Knits version of the Storm, or May Knits version of the Sweater 26, which is in a solid color in a pink. Amazing. the samples of both of these are in very neutral colors. They don't call attention. So I'm not saying that you can't like brown, you can't like beige, you can like neutrals. You can all like neutrals, and you can also knit a lot with them, but it's limiting. It's limiting for you, it's limiting for the designers, it's limiting for the designs. Go wild with color. We have this word of color, why not to go wild with it? So that's my message. I don't know if that's really controversial, but I think it is because so many people love them. I think, I'll just say it, I think variegated yarn is ugly, very ugly on its own. I'm sorry, I know it has so many fans and everything, but I don't ever like garments or accessories that are knitted only in a variegated yarn. When the yarn is heathered or speckled, or the variegation is very slight, I think you still can make something out of it. I kinda like speckled yarn, I kinda like heathered yarn, but the variegated, true variegated one, I think it looks so ugly when it's knitted in a full garment or a full accessory, and there is those strong pools of color here and there, and you can detect which is the color of that thing. But I have seen people making wonderful things with a variegated yarn in color work, having a solid color as their main color, and then the second color is a variegated, and it changes throughout the garment, the accessory. Often it looks very beautiful. By the way, nothing that I am saying is like you can't do. I am saying I would never knit something only in variegated, but I could buy it to use it with something else. My exception, some crochet stitches especially, but some knitting stitches hide the variegation, disguise the variegation for how much yarn they use. They sometimes can produce something as acceptable, not always so. The pressure that I see kind of tacitly in the community is to knit Continental. For 3 years, I think, I only ever knitted in English style, and I did not have the slightest desire to knit Continental. I didn't care at all. I would see very often people like, oh, Continental is so much quicker, and then you will see the tutorials of the designers and they are often knitting Continental. It's another thing we are due Elizabeth Zimmerman. She made it widespread, kinda, and well, you don't have to. I ended up knitting Continental. I do knit Continental, but only in the knit rows, like when I am knitting stockinette flat, for example, that one row is knit, one row is purl, I will knit Continental and come back in English style. I picked up this because when I was knitting my balloon jacket, I decided why not to try, because I'm all for experimenting. I want to try everything that is around in knitting, so Continental knitting was one of them. But you don't have to feel obliged. If you feel, for example, that your tension is better with English knitting, keep knitting English. You will knit faster, probably, because knitting the Continental is like that. You knit just one and wrap it and pull it. It's 2 moves. While if I were to knit English, I put the needle through the yarn, then I have to pick the yarn and wrap it, and then 3 movements. So yes, you're making 1 movement less, so it should be faster. However, who cares? It's not a race, it's knitting. Knitting is slow. Look at that. I will take long time to finish that. Never mind. You don't have to be fast. That's it. One thing in our life that we don't have to be fast, this thing is knitting. Because we live in a world now in which everything is like that. Everybody wants everything for like yesterday. And this could be our refuge of quietness, of silence, of calmness, of slowness, of following a human pace to something. So if you want to keep knitting your English style, continue with English style, unless you need to like spare your hands, for example, and make less movements. In this case, I would say yes, do knit Continental, because you will have physical benefit from it. And the last thing I have to say is that designers owe you nothing but a well done. I think that we have a problem in this society. We have a problem with this century, especially Gen Zers, but millennials too, and like everybody a little bit. We have a problem with parasocial relationships, and people think they need the attention of their favorite something, favorite influencer, favorite designer, and everything. And great, if they do give you attention in social media, be happy about it, that's not a problem. However, to think that a designer should be thanking you for buying their pattern and knitting their project is a little bit entitled, I think, because they are a worker, you are a client, you have to provide them with the payment for the pattern. They have to provide you with good customer service, and that's all. Your relationship is ended now. Everything after that is something else. This is the commercial relationship. If you chose to knit a pattern, it's because you found that beautiful. And if you found that beautiful, you are acknowledging that that designer's work is beautiful, is good, there is value in this work. This value is what you get. They don't need to pat you in the back because you chose to knit their instructions. They already made the instructions for you to follow and produce that beautiful thing. I see people being so parasocial about designers, and you don't need to be. They don't have time to deal with that. The big designers don't have time. Some of them not even manage their own social media. Don't be frustrated by that. They also not better than you. You're a person as worthy as them. Your work is beautiful. You made the work following their instructions and it turned out beautiful, and you will receive compliments from other people, from people around you in real life, and you will dress that and feel beautiful. Their job is done. Your job is done. Now go and be happy. You don't need them and they don't owe you. If you have a relationship, great. Not a problem with that. But it will be better for you if you don't get frustrated by not having that relationship. That's it for today, folks. I did not advance in it at all. I think I have knitted like 20 stitches maybe, and this has more than 200, so not even halfway there. Anyway, thanks for being here. Thanks for following this, and tell me, please tell me, what did you think about this? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Was I very harsh? Well, say your piece. You deserve to say your piece. And if you attack me, well, what can I do? Just be polite in the comments, okay? Not only towards me, but in case you start some conversation there, be polite to each other. And I see you in the next one. Bye bye.